This is Ann Davis, and I'm here at the McMinn County Living Heritage Museum today on September the 8th, 2021. We will be interviewing and talking with Elizabeth Faye Kentfield. And Faye, we're just delighted to have you with us today. You've got a fascinating life story, and we're really looking forward to hearing what you have to share with us today.
Well, it's I or me who should be thankful for you guys to do this, capture some of the things that happen. I'm gonna get emotional in the military.
Well, we are honored to have you with
women.
us.
Mm-hmm.
We truly are honored to have you with us, and you've just got such an unusual history, and we're so glad to be able to capture that
Oh, thank you.
on video today. I wanted to ask you first about your early life. We're certainly interested in your military service, but your early life. I'm just fascinated to find out how you were raised and what would inspire you to do what you did with your life.
Well, how should I start? I was born with asthma, and people born with asthma don't go in the military. So when I was 12, the asthma went away, I didn't have it anymore because they call it pure asthma or something. So that I was able to, at 17, I guess it was, the recruiter came and I decided I'd go into the military. I didn't know it was going to be the Air Force because I said, let's start off with the Army and I'll see where I can go from there. But I'm so glad I chose the Air Force. It's special for me. That year, 1947, when I was born, the Air Force was born also. Did you know that?
No.
Isn't that amazing?
I did not.
Yeah, I was born in January. I think it was in September. So I was born before the Air Force. But when I was 10th grade, I guess it was, my brother the draft was going on, and my brother didn't want to do that, of course. Many people didn't. So I told my mother, I said, I'm going to do that. I said, because somebody's got to hold up to our name, So I did. So I was raised in a little tiny shed, which after 4 years I bought my mom a house. After 4 years in the military, I bought my mom a house, which I'm living in now because she passed.
So you were born in McMinn County then?
No, I actually was born in Bradley County.
Bradley County, okay.
In Charleston, Tennessee.
Okay.
And that place where I was born, it's been in our family for since the early 1800s. So the land's been there. So it was really great. The Trail of Tears comes through there. And then was born or lived on a graveyard. That was where the Trail of Tears came through, and that's why so many mixtures of Indians were actually in my family.
Where did you go to school, Faye?
I went to High Point. It's gone now in Charleston.
Okay.
And then for the high school part, I went to College Hill, which is gone also now in Cleveland. I was one of the last graduating classes of College Hill, 1966. So I was the last one there. And I never know why all these things happened to me, but I think they were great. So when I graduated from high school there, they call it salutatorium now, but I hear this is the only place that does that, this Tennessee. So that, and then I decided I didn't want to go to school anymore. 12 years of school is a long time. So that's when I decided to go into the military. And so I ended up in the Air Force, which was great, which I think was great. And my community at that time, they all supported the military at that time. They all prayed. The churches were behind me. They gave good write-ups and things for that. So, yeah, it was great.
Fascinating. Well, I want to, of course, talk now a little bit about your military service. What was it like for you as a woman, and especially a woman of color in the military at that time? I can't even imagine what it was like for a woman, period. And then I think you had even more challenges, didn't you?
I did, but actually I think I was I was the first female to go into the military in the Air Force. And I think I was the first one out of this whole area to ever go into military women. And so when I went in, which was ancients ago, the military was so different. It had the older men treated me like I was a daughter, and the younger men treated me like I was a sister. And I was progressive. I wanted to run and do everything I could. And so they saw that, but then, you know, I couldn't take orders. I couldn't see why I would have to say something to somebody, and then later they say it to somebody else, and you know, that game that they talk about. By the time it gets to the top and make decisions, it wasn't even the same question. So I progressed in rank quite fast, and then because they knew I wanted to do stuff, and I was pretty smart in there. It seemed like it was made for me, in other words. And it was young, and I was still young. So the only thing I found was really bad was they didn't use uniforms. They didn't have women developing our uniforms at that time. So we stayed in the same old ugly uniforms forever. Then finally they got a woman, and she started dressing us like stewardess on the airplane. And then it turned out really nice, because this time, and you know, in our fatigues, we wore men fatigues and their boots. And that all has changed to a lot now because camouflages and stuff. And we were in a different place, because when I went into Vietnam War was going on. Then after that, and I say when you have peace, it's just sharpening up your weapons for the next war. And so then I guess it was before Desert Storm and before whatever it's now. But each time it was just a little space between there, and then we'd be in another war. So.
Did you actually serve in Vietnam?
We were called I can't think of the word now. Vietnam era vets.
Okay.
I was in communications, and we, at that time, we still had carriers. People who carried messages, and we were just on this side of the action and everything, because communication had to stay in a safe place, but provided information to whoever was going on, whatever was going on. But yeah.
Were there many other women you served with?
No, I was at this one base, which you don't even talk about yet, still. And there was 24 women, most of them nurses, and 5,000 men. That was in England. It was in England anyway.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was. Of course, I stayed in my dorm. Most went to my job. Yeah. And I started being a waitress over the club. And that was just to get me out so I could do something else and still be protected, that kind of thing. So yeah, the breed of men was changing at that time too, during that period of time.
My goodness, I can't imagine. Well, tell me, what did you go to what we now call boot camp?
Well, Air Force people call it basic training.
Basic training.
They're the only ones that do, and they only have it in San Antonio, Texas. So, you know, anybody in the Air Force has gone through the same place. But it was great for me, too, again. They have 4 groups, you know, marching, and then they have, usually the little ones are in the back, so you try to keep up with the other ones up front. But strangely enough, they put me up front. And then everybody's stepping on my feet and everything like that. So but they have ropes, and they go by degrees of colors and things like that. So the one up front, I ended up having a green rope. And then as they were stepping on me all the time, they made me the guidon carry. It went up with the flags. Yeah. And then that slowed them down a little bit because I had to be front. But I was also the dorm chief. I don't know why. I mean, it's only 6 weeks, whole thing. And why I was progressed through all these things, it's amazing to me. I don't know why it happened. But I had to take care of the dorm and everything like that and make sure everything was done properly.
Well, obviously you were a standout, or you would not have been selected for so many things. And I think that's
I was very eager.
Wonderful.
I was very eager.
Well, could you tell us a little bit about your rank and the duties that went with your different ranks?
Okay. At first, just one little star and stripe, but now they took the star out and they just have the stripe to get you more position, more level. But I moved up fast. As I said, once I was out of base training, I had 2 stripes, which was the E2. And then as I progressed through time, I actually ended up with the Master Sergeant, E7, 2 under the top. And that's unheard of.
Yeah.
Definitely unheard of for women, and definitely unheard of for most people to out 21 years to make it that high. And I had been set in a position to go to the next one, but it had changed so much. I just went on and got out of my 21.
So you served
21 years.
Goodness. Oh, I think that's. What were some of the duties you had? I know you said you were in communications. Did you have any other duties other than that through the years as you progressed through your ranks?
Pretty much once I found the niche I wanted, because I started off in admin and then I moved on. The thing about admin and personnel and communication is that you know everything is going on everywhere, and you know I had to know that. Everything that flew out, or even down to toilet paper, I would have to be in charge of making sure the message went out and then get it taken care of. But of course I had a staff, I had these people. So once I moved on up to some rank, I became manager of, this is cute, all the guys that had problems, they would give them to me. And you know what was wrong with them? They were too smart. They couldn't stand doing stuff. So I would find the most important kid who could manage. He'd be the manager. I'd be the overseer. Hey, I just really loved it, you know. And so they would respect and obey, and I always want to know their input and what would better do this or that. So we got on really, really good. One thing, I was a recruiter also during a period of time. And I would call them the milk boys. I sat in it. They come from the country, you know, and they grew up on a farm mostly, and they had never ever shot a gun. And this is terrible, but the first person they probably killed was in the military over in battle. But they were very good too. When I was in Saudi Arabia, they still hit your hands for stealing, cut your heads off for, you know, different things. So there's one. At noon is when they would push everybody down to see this, the head cutting. They especially like us to see it. So this one kid, he was moved up to the front. He didn't even realize he got caught in the whole thing and moved up front. He saw this head coming off and the eyes were still blinking. I bet he hasn't got over that yet, but he did come and talk to me. I did go to college and in psychology, mostly, and cultural anthropology, which both of them helped me counsel and helped me know other things about different people and things. So I found that so I was able to use that. It seemed like everything I did, I was able to use it for the purpose of that. But yeah, once I moved to management, I could talk right directly to the top. And in communication too, they had it so NATO, we was writing the NATO books, that's the different countries, England and stuff, NATO books, and so I helped put that together. And then also at that time, they were starting to close some of the bases down, the active duty ones, and the Guard entered in there. So when I got out of college, I switched over, so I could still be going to college and do anything else I want. I switched over to the Guard, Air National Guard. It was a baby too. And so the Air Force still called on me because I was in communication to go and do things for it. So that all worked out really good. I went so many places, almost every state, including Hawaii and Alaska, and did missions for them, which was all new people I didn't know, so it made it be an easy thing to do that. So Saudi Arabia had this plane called the AWAC. Do you remember that was a little thing on top? We sold that to them. So in communications, we not only had ground communications, on the little plane, it was the information center. You'd go up for like 8 hours or something, do all the observations, then you'd come back down and fix all the data and things like that. So that was always great. I've been on all kind of bases, like the Air Guard, basically Air Force. They only have they have the regular active duty people and a few reserve, but not many. And then in the Guard, they started taking over the missions, so communication was again new, and it was growing. And then I was going back and forth for the active duty ones, so it's kind of like it made a relationship. And so they were new, growing up, and communication was really new then. And the old communication stuff was one ringy dingy. This was the oldest, and then we had what was called a switching center, where all the little tape would come through there, and we'd set it to go out somewhere else, and that was so we were intermediate between that part too. It was just, I can't help but say it was exciting.
Oh, I can only imagine. Now, you mentioned being in England and also Vietnam. Were you stationed in any other parts of the world?
Oh, yeah, I was in Saudi Arabia. I was in Korea. I'm going to forget most of the places, but most of the time I was in another country anyway. So, China, Japan. I can't remember them all. I'd have to go through my orders and figure out where I've been. That's another, when you do 4 years, and you usually do 2 more reserve. I did my 4 and continued on. Sometimes I'd be on deployment, and the personnel people say, your contract is over, you need to come back in. Well, I couldn't come back in, so they'd extend me until I could come back in and do mine. So time just kept going and going and going without me even thinking about it.
Well, I'm just in awe of what you did.
I am too, actually, because I can't figure out how I got through all this stuff.
What motivated you while you were in service? I know it had to be there had to be times when you could be discouraged or even afraid, maybe. What was your motivation for continuing to?
The people, but more so the job and the places I got to go to, and the amount of. And I could actually be in control of some things, been manager, and I got to be with all 4 services. So we were trying to make a communication book that all of us communicate with. So I had this whole group, which was Marines. I didn't have Coast Guard ever, but I did know a Coast Guard person who been a recruiter. I put her in the Coast Guard. But I had the Marines, the Army, the Navy, and then the Air Force. And so I would take information from everything that happened in the night, and then I would go to the staff, who was all the officers and everything, to tell them what had progressed and what needed to go next time. So that's why they let me stay on night, because I corrected all the mistakes they had made in the daytime, and they were able to get a clean slot every time. Clean slate.
One of the things that you had alluded to earlier, and I've got a quote here, and I want to ask you what you think about this. Women do not like to take orders. They do not like the authority of people over them, and they don't like the chain of command. Do you think
That was totally true for me.
It was?
That was totally true for me. That's why I wanted to get up and rank as fast as I could. And I was saying that a few minutes ago. It's like, what is that? Gossip? Is that little chain you do? You start off something and then somebody else does it. Right. Well, see, by that time, you don't even know. They don't even know what you actually said up there, and they sure don't know the relationship you have with the people and everything that's going on. So yeah, one person came to me one time, some officer, and he said, "You have trouble with authority, don't you?" Over him, authority. I said, well, and I explained it to him. This is why. I said, but I'm sure that, you and I can talk and we can come to some kind of agreement. And so since then, I hadn't had a problem with that. Once I moved to management, you didn't have a problem with it anyway.
Just to summarize a little bit here, what are some of your favorite memories from your time in the service?
Oh my goodness. There's so many. Probably as bad as England was, it's been in England. It wasn't bad, but having so many men around you at the time in the earlier part. And Saudi Arabia was certainly an adventure. We was in little cubicles with our communication stuff, and our sidearm was just a gun, But we had to learn on all the other ones to shoot them. But they had this place called the Priory, which I guess some famous person that made some film at, but it's hotel. It was a hotel. And we got frozen up there on the hill once because they had bombed. And I don't know if it should be one of my favorite ones of mine, but we all got away. Two people were hurt, and then basically that was it. They bombed it. So having my daughter, I think, was really good, and that's probably also what I dislike mostly. I didn't spend enough time with her growing up, but she's fine, okay now, and I'm so glad. So having her, and that was during the period of time when I went in '67 on up for 4 years. They didn't want women to be pregnant and be in, so I got out and had my baby. And then I went to college, and then I went to the Air Guard. So yeah, that was perfect. So now they have uniforms, pregnant uniforms, and all that stuff. You can't just stop people from bringing another one around. So I think they cater a lot to women now. Where they, like I said, I wore men clothes most of the time, unless I was dressed up in my uniform, my dress uniform. Mm-hmm.
My goodness. Well, is there anything that you could share with us about your life after the military? I'm sure that was an adjustment.
Oh,
wasn't it?
Yes, that was. Usually when people get out of the military, if they retire, usually they go to another federal job. I went to IRS because they were using your degree and promoting you up into management. So I went there. That was not a good decision, but I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that. And then after that, I had the post-traumatic stress problem. And the reason why I figured out is because the military are so young, they have everything organized, you know what everybody else is doing, and it's just made to, but IRS was so chaotic and everything like that. So that's when I kind of fell apart. So they were just doing medicines that they had for the post-traumatic stress at that time, and they didn't have hardly anything at that time. So I could only take one out of three, which was lithium, and lithium's hard. It's a hard drug. It's a desert salt, as I understand. But so I was 3 years in my upper room. I got my upper room because I made this 2 glass rooms, one downstairs and one upstairs. So I needed to have a lot of sun. I was a sun worshiper, but I couldn't because of the medicines. I couldn't have sun. So I made this glass room upstairs. And I have 5 dogs. My last one is now. And each dog did something for me along the way. Actually, I did this like a commercial or a statement to the president about how important it is to have someone who you can love and love all the time without anything. And I also said that when people get out of the military, like me, they can talk a lot or they don't talk at all. And the best thing to do is pair them together so they can actually start talking. Because the ones that don't talk, it's hard. It's extremely hard for them. Hard for the parents too, or the relatives around, like wives or whatever. Yeah, it's hard. So they actually took it in control, and usually the drug dogs or whatever they use, they usually kill them after whoever their mate was, because they were locked into their owner. So now they don't. They feed them out to whatever military person that needs them to help. And a lot of time they were really smart. They could open things for you, and so they would actually help the person who couldn't get around very well and stayed at home all the time. So they did that one, which was good. I'm so glad they did that.
That's a wonderful idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've had some good ones along the way, but
So-
not just put in there by myself.
Were any of your dogs military dogs? Is that
No, actually, my first one I got in England. She's a little collie. And the next one I had was a chow. When I retired, they said, you cannot, my boys, they said, you cannot do this for yourself. Somebody needs to take care of you. So they gave me this chow. He was so beautiful. He's wonderful. He was ginger-like, and I had him cut. Lion King was famous, so I had him cut like a lion. Oh, and the kids used to run up and think, I'm so glad he's a good dog. I mean, he loved kids, and he was a good dog. Then I had, not long ago, I had this other little dog, which was a collie, between collie and Labrador. And she was crazy. She was like a military dog. You could put her anywhere and she'd figure out how to get out of the place first. She could open gates, she could scale fences. I mean, the people don't really believe this. I mean, it's true. And she loved the neighbors, and the neighbors loved her, and she thought she was in control of the whole area, and she loved little kids.
Yeah.
One time she was sitting there, and this little girl, 2 years old, she took her time to go up to the little girl. And then she put her hand on the little girl. Little girl's looking at it. I know, I wish I'd taken a picture.
Aww.
That was sweet. And she was good. Now I have a Great Pyrenees. I had a Great Pyrenees. I didn't tell you about that one. I had that one. But now I have a Samoyed, and it's all white, and it's spoiled like crazy. But that's my last one, I figure out. So he's good. My collie was a female. Then I had a male. Chow, and then I had another female, the mixture, and now I have a male, and I have another female, the Great Pyrenees. So I had 5 altogether.
Well, Faye, we just appreciate your time so much today. This has been, your life is just, as I've said before, fascinating to me, and I am in awe of what you did and what you accomplished.
Thank you.
And I hope I'll have an opportunity to talk to you again sometime.
I hope so. I
But
appreciate
before we close, is there anything that you can think of you would like to share that we might not have talked about?
This one thing I think is I'm heavy in the Lord, and I was born not breathing, and He breathed for me till I was 12, and then when I was 12 I could breathe for myself basically, and then He set up the Air Force for me. He took me through the Air Force. He took me through education. He gave me the high points of my life. And then it was like, I'm sure you've heard this before. I was in the military. Then you go to the God's Army. So that's when I've broken down. So I could get rid of the military stuff and go back in His army. And now I think that's where I serve all the time. Because I think I owe my life to Him.
We all do, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. We all do.
We do.
Well, I'm just so grateful and thankful that you came back to our area and our community, because what a blessing you are.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're so welcome.
All right.
And thank you for much. I think even my uniform been out there, I've heard that more girls come in and they're more impressed by that, and they think about that too, because it still gives you everything.
Absolutely.
It still gives you your education, gives you travel, it gives you knowledge, it gives you all those different things that a career, someone would probably like to have in their life.
Well, that's it. Truly, there's many things in your life that will inspire many people, and I just thank you for your time today. And
You're welcome. You're welcome.
appreciate you being with us.
Oh, I did graduate with honors too.
Oh,
When
not
I did my
surprised.
4 years, my 4 years in college.
I'm not surprised.
And then of course I have full colors now too for whatever. I told them I don't need a flyover, but I would like to have the 21 gun salute, and I would like to have and I'd like to have it with real people, and then taps with real people. I said, freeze me if you need to until you get all the people you need. Put me back together.
Well, I'm sure they won't have any problems finding people willing to do that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Faye.
I didn't get emotional, did I?